All right. Okay, so do you just want to like start with everyone just kind of talking about like what they thought of the book?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I really it kind of like took me a little bit to get into it, but I thought it was cool that it was like a more like postmodern version of Cinderella. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize it was a series, so I was a little confused at the end. But no, I thought it was pretty good. It also took me a little bit to get into it. I don't know, reading is a little bit hard for me, so books like that are not easy for me to read. But once I kind of got to know the characters a bit, it was a bit easier.
Yeah, I thought it was a good book. It was hard for me to read though because I just wanted it to like follow the actual story of Cinderella instead of this. So I was like, what? She's not adopted? This is so weird. But I mean, by the end, I was like, okay, it's fine.
Sweet. I don't know why it keeps switching back to me. I don't know if you guys can see that either.
No.
Okay, cool. Never mind. I just like while everyone was talking, it kept switching in between like whoever was talking, and then I could just like see myself.
Weird.
But the next part of the assignment, hold on, let me pull it up, was just I guess to kind of like talk about the analysis, just like we did with you know what I'm talking about?
American Born Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
Chinese. Okay, so there's a couple questions that we can answer too. Okay, well, yeah, so the first question was why did Meyer choose to incorporate the story of Cinderella into her novel? And why has that remained popular over the years? So I think maybe like using Cinderella as a parallel was it made it easier for people to kind of like jump into the story and understand it, whereas she didn't need to really like the exposition didn't need to be too long because like if you know the story of Cinderella, which almost everybody does, you can like kind of catch on to like the characters and everything really quick.
Yeah, I also think that maybe she incorporated the story because it's kind of like a feel-good story or like an underdog story where you read about an underdog who like climbs the ranking or like just tries to or they figure out they're not an underdog really, or they try to figure that out. And also kind of like rising up from the ashes and becoming royalty. Like that, I think, is something that almost everyone can connect to, and it's kind of easy to like take it or put a spin on that, and which she definitely did. So
yeah, I think like it says, like it's super popular, and so I think it's easy to take a story like that and twist it, and then people will be like really interested because I mean sometimes you get sick of hearing the same story over and over, so people are like, oh, like I wonder how they changed it, and then it seems interesting to like see it change over the years, and people take different like what they think.
Yeah, like her own interpretation or like whoever's reading it.
Yeah.
The next question was like, what do you think the audience and purpose of Cinder were, and how was it received? Like, how did it come across? If anyone else,
I don't know. I think it's kind of like aimed towards. I mean, at least when I was reading it, I feel like this would be a book that I would probably enjoy like as a teenager. Probably because it's teens that are in the book. Like Cinder's a teen and Kai's basically a teen. So, but I think when you're a teenager, like going through your middle school and high school years, you're trying to find out who you are. You kind of like experimenting a bit, like, oh, I like to dress like this, or, you know, like just different ways. And I kind of feel like that's why that was the audience, is because in this story, it was kind of like learning who Cinder really was and then accepting who she really was, even though those around her didn't really accept her. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that is just like pretty much what I was going to say. I feel like the audience was mostly like teenagers or like people who maybe are like at a point in their lives where they're trying to kind of like find themselves. I think like I did enjoy the story, but it reminded me of something that I would probably read when I was in like middle school or like high school, just because like I kind of felt like some teenage angst in there. Just like, I don't know, like the romantic tension between like her and the prince, like of course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was like an enjoyable book, definitely. But I think that if I was maybe like at a point in my life where I wasn't really like sure of myself or sure what I was doing, I think I could relate to the book a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it would have been one of those books that like my high school English teacher made me read. But I was like I never would have picked the book for myself. But so yeah, I feel like it kind of took me back to high school and being like, okay, like I'm gonna read this fairy tale. Like, yeah, I just thought it was funny.
I think like I agree. I probably wouldn't have picked this book for myself to read, but I think that Meyer's writing style like kind of like brings me back to like how I felt in high school. Like even though I don't necessarily feel that now.
Yeah, you were like, oh yeah, I remember going through that.
Yeah.
The next question was just about like what attitudes or like what was it? Societal attitudes, values, or ideals are conveyed and also challenged in the book. I think that like one of them just kind of goes along with the theme a lot is like identity. Like, you know, your personal identity is like really valuable to you, and that's something that only you have control over, is like who you are. And so I think that like the struggle between like Cinder, like the man versus man conflict, where it's like she like wants to stay true to her identity, but then she like finds out about the fact that she's like not even who she thought she was. Just like that whole like identity conflict in a society that puts so much value on like who you are or like your outward appearance. I think was like a pretty big attitude that was both like conveyed and challenged.
Yeah, so I think identity was probably the biggest one, like you mentioned. But I also think a little bit of like the opposite. So love, and then like that there's always like an opposite to that. Like, because she was loved by her adoptive father, and then I guess love and betrayal would be the two. So like she was loved by her adoptive father, and then when he died, she kind of felt like left out from the family, from her mom, the stepmom, because the way she treated her, because she wasn't a human. Or and then later on, she starts to fall in love with the prince, but then when he realizes who she really is, she kind of feels betrayed. So I think it's kind of like in life there are going to be things like there's a balance. Like there's going to be love and there's going to be betrayal and like feeling left out. There's going to be both in the world. So
Yeah, and I think along with that is it also kind of touched on like family situations and like we're used to like nuclear families, or like that's the ideal, but like a lot of people in society have like, you know, one parent and then like siblings. So yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also a quote that I kind of liked. I think it would relate into this question. Kind of how like we don't really get to pick who we are, or how we look really, or what families we're born into. That's not really up to us. And so the quote was, "She kept her head high even as her eyes stung, even as panic filled her vision with warnings and precautions. It was not her fault. He had liked her. It was not her fault. She was a cyborg. She would not apologize." So I think at this point, like, she realizes that it's not her fault for being the way she is, and that she needs to accept that. And if other people can't accept that, like, she shouldn't worry about what they think, I guess.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. The next question was like pick. Well, it wasn't really a question. It was just kind of like pick the name of one of the characters and just kind of like analyze it and discuss it each. So I think like one of the obvious ones is Cinder, so I'll skip that one. But like I think the juxtaposition of Cinder's name with her sisters, like Poppy, what was it? I can't even remember sisters' names now. It was like Yinny and Poppy or something. I don't know, just like really feminine, like pretty, like positively names with like a positive connotation, as opposed to like Cinder, which kind of is like dirty and dusty, and it like doesn't have that same like feminine, like positive connotation with it. So I thought that was really interesting, and that was like a good way for the author to kind of like differentiate between the characters' identities.
Yeah. I also kind of did a little, because I figured Cinder would be like one everyone did, so I did a little research on Peony. I think that's how you say that. But it's there's like some Greek mythology behind it, and basically someone's transformed into Peony because it's like a flower, and they wanted people to admire that flower and praise it. And so like overall they wanted the meaning of Peony to be compassion. And I think if I remember, I might be getting the sisters confused, but I'm pretty sure Peony was the one that was nice to Cinder. And so like her name means passion or compassion, and she was really compassionate towards Cinder, whereas in like the normal Cinderella story, the stepsisters are kind of like, they don't have anything to do with Cinderella. And so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that like the place was like New Beijing. So like the whole time I pictured like China. And just like an Asian culture. And so I thought it was really interesting that like the only one with some sort of like, well, I guess their last name was Lin, but was Prince Kai. That was very Asian, and like everybody else was just like Yoni, and I don't remember the mom's name, Adri, or like whatever. That was kind of weird that like they were just all so different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the last questions is, this is kind of an interesting question. It was like, if you could have one of the book characters meet another person, living, dead, or mythical, who would it be and why? I think I like Yeah. That's kind of an interesting question.
Yeah, there's so many options.
Maybe just like, I don't know, this might sound kind of dumb, but like having Cinder meet someone like Caitlyn Jenner, or someone who like in like this modern society has had to like, has like in the public eye had their whole identity like stripped from them and changed, and like has tried to like like hold on to their individuality while like dealing with something so like intimate and personal, like a sex change operation, I think is like, it would be interesting to see how, like, what Cinder could learn from someone who like had to go through pretty much what she was going through, like an identity crisis almost, but like in such a public way. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty, I don't know. Yeah, just having Cinder meet someone that has also had to deal with like trying to figure out how to accept who they are, and while everyone else around them doesn't know how to feel about them. And yeah, a lot of what people say about like who they are is how everyone thinks. Like it's really hard to break out of that shell of how everyone thinks and kind of think on your own. So yeah, I think that'd be cool if Cinder could meet someone like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think of like another character, and I just can't. This is like such a weird question.
Yeah, makes you think.
Yeah, Cinder is the protagonist, and like I feel like you kind of get like an in-depth look into like her life, and in her head it's kind of hard to like choose another character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe I would have the the stepmom at Adri. I don't know how you say her name.
Something.
But yeah, I would have her meet like a mom in today's age that's like trying to adopt and that really like is, I don't know, compassionate about, or like they have a love towards their adopted child, whereas she never really had that love, and I just want someone to show her some compassion so she could learn that.
I like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Or like have the stepsisters like go to like a third world country and like experience, you know, what life is like is like the opposite social class of them, and like you said, just learning compassion because they're just so mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the characters could benefit from some compassion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like throughout the book, I kind of like almost had a hard time believing it was real, just because like some of the characters just like had like zero empathy. I was like, there's no way that like you can exist like this and not like ever feel bad about anything ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I like read about people like that, or like even if it's not real, or like even there's people in real life that I've met too that I'm like, how are you how are you acting that way? How do you not feel bad about saying those kinds of things to people? Or like, I mean, even in today's world with like racism, like how somebody could say something like that. Like how can you not like put yourself in their shoes and or like, I don't know, just be accepting. So
Yeah.
I think maybe that's why the author kind of over exaggerated those qualities in a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
That was the end of the questions. If you guys have anything else you want to add.
I think that covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, then, so who like did like the write-up last time?
I did the write-up.
Okay. So Jerica, do you want to do it, or I can do it? Either way.
Yeah, I can do it this time. That's fine.
Sweet. And I think that's it. Good luck on your papers.
All right, I'll get that in tonight. So.
Perfect.
Bye, guys.
See you guys later.